Update. I bought a house for my son and daughter-in-law, but they excluded me from their housewarming party because of my facial scar. After confronting them and realizing the depth of their disrespect, I gave them 30 days to vacate the house. Despite their pleas and threats, I stood firm and took back control of my life. Part 2. Thanks for the overwhelming response. I didn't expect it to blow up. I mean, who would want to read a sob story of an old woman? It looks like there are a lot of women and men going through similar emotional turmoil. Thanks a ton for making me feel better with your comments. However, there were some people belittling my feelings, saying it was no big deal, it's their house and their choice. Sorry, folks, it's not their house, it's my house. I bought it for them. Let me fill in some more details. I guess I should have added it in my first post, didn't know how much some people like to dig. Also, some people picked on me for using Susan as my daughter-in-law's name. Well, I used a fake name. My son's name is also not Mark. I have the right to protect my identity, don't I? That's why I'm writing on Reddit and not making a social media post. Phew. So, Mark and Susan have been struggling financially for a very long time. Like I said, Mark made some stupid financial decisions that put him in a tough spot. I helped him whenever he had a big purchase to make the list would be endless. While all that was fine, I realized that their biggest expense was rent. They were living in a tiny, cramped apartment in the city with their 2 kids, barely making ends meet. Mark was working 2 jobs just to keep food on the table, and Susan was doing what she could to contribute, but it was clear they were drowning. My husband's inheritance was sitting in the bank untouched. I still have a job at the city library, which is enough to pay my bills. I also have my own savings, and my husband left me a house, so rent was sorted. I thought, why not use my husband's money for something good? Why not give them a home where they can feel secure and start building a future? So, I bought a house for them in the suburbs. It isn't a mansion by any means, but it's a beautiful, comfortable home in a nice neighborhood. It has 3 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, and a backyard. I thought it was perfect for them. When I broke the news to them, they were both in tears. Mark hugged me tightly, thanking me over and over. Susan, on the other hand, was a bit more restrained in her gratitude. She smiled and said the right words, but there was something in her eyes that made me feel uneasy. Still, I brushed it off. I don't need her validation, do I? The house needed a renovation. The previous owners were an old couple who didn't, or couldn't, keep up with the maintenance. I asked Mark to give me some more time so that I could get everything fixed before they moved in. He said they wanted to move in right away and use the rent money to renovate the new house. Fair enough. I gave them the keys. After they moved in, I wanted to visit a few times to see how things were settling in, but each time, Susan had an excuse for why I couldn't come by. Either the house was a mess, the kids were sick, or she was just too tired. I didn't push it, thinking that maybe she just needed time to adjust. But as weeks turned into months, I started to feel like I was being deliberately kept away. I'd ask Mark about it, but he'd just shrug and say that Susan was stressed with the move and that I should give her some space. Her workplace was a 45-minute drive from the house, and she wasn't used to living so far from the office. Well, there were some perks to living in the city. Heartland, your choice. Mark occasionally sent me a few pictures of the new interiors, not to mention he asked me to cover some of those expenses because, it's too much to bear. However, when I wanted to come over to see it myself, his wife would be caught up with something or the other. Honestly, I wasn't as bothered as I might have sounded because I have a busy life working as a librarian, participating in community service, and traveling all over for various causes. So, most of the family drama I let pass. But then I got the news of the housewarming party, and I couldn't swallow it. Mark never called me back. The next day, I saw photos of the party on social media. They had hosted a big event with friends, Susan's relatives, and even some of Mark's old colleagues. Everyone seemed to be having a great time, everyone except me, because I hadn't been invited. I was hurt. I wanted to do something about it, enough of being the pushover. But I'm not someone who would show up at the party uninvited. I don't find it classy, sorry. I knew Mark and Susan would give me enough opportunities to avenge my heartbreak. Bingo. It came sooner than I expected. Mark called me for a handout. Why? Apparently, his lovely wife burned through the month's expenses and maxed out both of their credit cards on the party. Now they don't have any money to get through the month. Well done. I asked, what can I do about it? He remained silent and said, I said, sorry, I don't. What do you want me to do with this information? He fell short of words. My dear boy isn't used to this kind of cold treatment. He stammered, nothing, I just called to fill you in. I said, yes, you have. Now, I've got to go. Bye. The next day, he texted me, Mom, I know you're mad at us for not inviting you to the party. I'm sorry, Mom. It just slipped our minds. I know you called me to talk about it, but there was just too much going on, and I totally missed calling you back. We can have another gathering next month with you, Aunt Lily, Uncle Fred, and Alicia. Hope to see your response. Lily and Fred are my siblings, and Alicia is my niece who informed me about the party, so now they want to throw me a bone to get the ATM running. Sorry, honey, the ATM is shut now. I ignored it. He called me in the evening, asking, hey Mom, are you okay? I didn't hear back from you. I was kind of worried about your health. I could sense the desperation in his voice. I chuckled and asked him, what do you want? He thought he won. He laughed and said he wanted some money to pay the bills. I said, I don't have any right now. He seemed shocked because he didn't expect no to be an answer. I said, well, get used to it, and hung up. I ignored his calls and texts for the entire week. He understood he had messed up big time. He texted me that this Sunday, he would visit me with the kids. I'm sure he would want to use his children to emotionally manipulate me, but he doesn't know me yet. Well, let's see how it goes. I'll update you later. Thanks for reading. It's not every day you hear about someone buying a house for their son and daughter-in-law, only to be kept away like a leper at a feast. And the cherry on top? The epic showdown of mom, we spent all your money on a party, and now we need more. Nothing says gratitude quite like maxing out credit cards on a bash while your benefactor is left out in the cold. If only they were as good at remembering their manners as they are at remembering to hit you up for cash. Thankfully, you shut the ATM down. I bet they're rethinking their strategy, realizing that the housewarming wasn't just a new beginning for them, but a lesson in how not to manage family. You can click on share and more to see if there is a part 3.